Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be tackling this blinking lights animation. This is all basically one object. We're going to be controlling this procedurally. If you want to download this project file and see what I did and things like that, if you missed something or you just want to see, you can get that on Gumroad for $1. So let's get into it. All right, so first off, we're not going to be modeling the light bulb. I already did that, so I'm going to provide that for free. In the first link of the description is the link to download that model. So let's go ahead and open that. And it's just called the bulb. And here is the bulb model that we're going to be playing with. So now that we have this, I'm just going to take, it's two separate objects. For me, we're not going to be able to actually see this bottom part. So I'm just going to delete that. And we have this. So we need to add an array modifier to this whole thing. So let's do that here. We'll put 1.3 on the separation, and we're going to give it a count of 15. And let's copy this modifier. And let's copy this modifier and put a 0 on that one. On this one, Control V, and now we have our light set up. I'm actually going to widen these by a little bit more. That looks about right. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply and apply. The reason why we're applying it because we want the nodes to see these light bulbs as one object. So we're going to do that. And let's just center this bulb out, and let's go ahead and add a plane and scale it past the light bulbs. All right, so first thing I'm going to do to actually start deriving the animation is I'm going to hit the tilde key. For those of you laptop users, it should be right under the escape, and we'll go to the very top. Click on the light bulbs, hit tab so we go into edit mode, make sure that everything is selected, just like that. We're going to hit U for unwrap, and we're going to project from view. So what that's going to do, once we hit the UV editing tab here, is now we have all this. So I'm going to hit B, select everything, and just scale it up. Right now, scaled it up a little bit too much. So just like that. Now what's going to happen is we're going to be using a noise texture, and it's just going to be mapping that noise, and it won't look like, and it's going to be mapping that noise around in the way we don't want. We want these to be pretty much as small as like a pixel. So if we were to just scale it down, they would all scale down together. We want these individual objects to scale down by themselves. So the way you do that is you click right up here, you can see this little square, click individual origins and hit S0, enter. And it just pretty much scales them down to like a pixel size. They're really, really small. So it's going to take that point from the texture rather than the whole shape of the texture, basically. All right, now let's go into the shading tab here in Blender. We'll hit Z and rendered, and obviously you're not going to see much of anything. Right now this is using the Cycles render engine. We're going to be doing this in Blender. Sorry, we're going to be doing this in Eevee. So we're going to switch over to Eevee. Of course, the thumbnail render you see in the thumbnail of the video, that was rendered in Cycles, so this can definitely be done the same way. It's going to act the same in Cycles, but for me, I'm using a laptop, so it's easier for me to render using Eevee, and they both look fairly good, but Cycles, of course, looks better. So we'll take this here, we'll hit rendered, and nothing happening. So let's click new. Let's delete this principled, and we'll add a mix shader. Plug the shader into the surface. Nothing's going to happen yet. We need a glass BSDF, and a emission shader. So we'll take these two right here and plug them into the shader sockets of the mix. So now we have this, but now they're just going to sit by themselves. We need to tell them where to go within this model. So let's take this mix shader, come up here, add a color ramp right there, so we can squash what's going to be behind it, which is a noise texture. But still nothing's going to be happening the way we want it. If we were to just use it like this, see how it's acting? This is why we went into the UV and scaled them all down to one point. We don't want them acting like this. We want it to act like, well, it's covering the whole bulb. So what we have to do is add a mapping node, just like this, plug the vector into the vector, and the last thing, which is a texture coordinate, and this is where we're going to use that UV thing we did. Take the UV socket, plug it right there, and so what's going to happen is now you can see it happening. Once you play with the color ramp, it's treating it the way we want. Now we're just going to take linear, turn it to constant, So we really get that blinky light setup we're looking for. So once you bring this white over, you're going to see it acting like lights. And that's basically the procedure. So I'm going to bring it right about there. We can take the scale and sort of make it a little bit around 100. And that's basically how it works. So the way I animated it, if you want to animate in a loop, is I'm just going to go over here and add the timeline. You're going to want to take the rotation and just do that. And if you want to loop, of course, you would take the rotation and rotate it by 360 degrees. So we're going to insert a keyframe, go to the very end, then skip a frame, click in the right arrow, 360, enter, right click, insert keyframe. And now you have this blinking lights animation that we're working with. So that's basically the tutorial, but I want it to look really, really cool. So what I'm going to do first off is take the world brightness here, bring it all the way to the black, and now we just have some basic Eevee reflections. We want it to be much better. So we'll go back to shading, take this color ramp, and bring them all the way up. And an Eevee lighting works much, much different than cycles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, Shift A, I'm going to add a light probe, a reflection cube map. In the reflection cube map settings, I'm going to change it from sphere to box, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to scale it up like this. And we're just going to have this reflection map cover everything, just like that. And then once we hit Z and go to our Eevee settings, go to indirect lighting and click bake indirect lighting. Quick second. Now, once we go back to the shading here and we bring it all the way down, you can see now it's starting to reflect what we're looking for. It's reflecting all those lights. So what you can do is, if this is not bright enough for you, you can bring all the lights back, take your emission strength, and say put it at 5. Then go back to indirect lighting, bake it again, and then bring it back down, and now it's brighter. So it's sort of like fake lighting. We're taking the lighting of what it looks like when the lights are on and just shading everything. So now we have this glass. Let's go to the shader editor so we can actually see through the glass. So right here, turn on screen space refraction, and now we have our nice see-through light bulbs. I'm going to bring this ground plane and make it pretty dark right around here. So bring it pretty dark so we can actually see those really nice reflections, just like that. And I'm going to take a camera, Control-Alt-0 to snap it to view, and we're going to change it in our camera settings from perspective to orthographic. And then the orthographic scale, you can bring it out and then move your camera around just like this. And so now, in this orthographic view, you can take your light bulbs, give them some light right about here. Say give them that, about that many. The bloom is way too much. So you can bring that bloom down right about there. And you can just watch the animation roll through. And so now you have these really nice blinking lights. And you can, of course, make the lights smaller. For example, if these lights are too close together, you don't like that gap, you can go back into edit mode. And of course, like we did before, we can take this, individual origins, scale them down a little bit. Just like that, because it's still one object, but you can scale them individually, just like it's a couple of objects separately. So now you have a better composition with that scaling. And there you go. Those are the lights. You can play around, add some lighting, add some color. It's really easy to add color. All you have to do is take this color ramp and plug it right into the emission. Sorry, not the color ramp, the noise texture. And now you can see it's kind of working. Of course, you can add a color ramp here and say in the black portions, make it red or orange, and the white portions, make it blue. You can bring this in just like this. And so now it's blinking around in multiple colors, and you can have a lot of fun with that. So there you go. That's basically the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And there you go.